environment here at Gateway. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Miss Stanley, I see we have a new student in the class. Yeah? Let's do a little gratitude and move on and talk more about the stuff we talked about yesterday too. Kind of cement in holes that are missing and things like that and pull it all together. All that good stuff, okay? So, Miss Stanley, let's start with you. What are you grateful for today?
I think it's pretty obvious. I'm grateful for this fur ball.
That fur ball,
He's
yeah.
sleepy, though.
The dog's about the size of you.
Yeah, my actual dog's actually probably bigger. This is my boyfriend's dog.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
What's your boyfriend's dog's name?
Her name's Hope.
Hope? That's a good name. I like it.
Yeah, they found her skin and bones. She's kind of a rescue.
Oh. Well, you rescue her. She doesn't seem skin and bones anymore.
Oh no, she's fat now. She's fat dog.
Awesome. Well, she looks fat and happy. What, anything else? Just grateful for your dog? You don't have to be grateful for anything else. I just want to make sure I didn't cut you off before I move on.
Food. I like food a lot.
I like food a lot too. Yeah. What is your favorite dish? Do you have one?
Pizza.
Yeah, pizza. Everybody loves pizza. What's your favorite kind of pizza?
It's gotta have lots of pepperoni, or just all meat, like meat lovers. I like that.
Cool. You got it. Good. Your dog probably likes that too.
She'll eat anything.
Of course. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Glad you got a little companionship there too. Miss Petrie. Howdy hi.
Hi.
What are you grateful for today, Miss Petrie?
I woke up this morning and took the dogs for a walk, and I actually had to put on a long sleeve shirt.
I know.
It was chilly.
I know.
I'm so grateful.
I know.
Feel that chill, that crisp in the air.
I know.
I woke up Chris and I said, you have to go downstairs because he's been dying to take his motorcycle out.
I did the same thing. I rode my motorcycle to work today because I was like, it's so nice.
Yeah, I said, you got to wake up and take the bike out. You have to go for your motorcycle ride.
Did he go?
Yeah, he just left.
Good, because tomorrow it's hot again. It's like we get one day. So.
Oh, man.
I did the exact same thing. I mowed the lawn. I'm like, I'm actually cold out here, and I'm like, I'm riding the bike. It was awesome.
Oh, man.
I almost ditched your guys' class. I almost called in sick. No, I wouldn't do that. I was like, this is so nice. Well, that's awesome. So you're grateful for the weather, but you're also kind of grateful that your boyfriend got to enjoy the weather too, and his bike and all that stuff. Good. Yeah. Cool. Soon, another month and a half, it'll start being like that all the time.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Takes forever. It seems like summer never ends. Yes.
Oh my God. It's getting worse the older we get too.
I know. Every year I say I'm going to leave, and it never happens. I'm never going to leave. Thank you. Miss Hanson. Miss Hanson, what are you grateful for today?
Good morning. I'm grateful that I got to go on a date with my husband last night.
A date?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are hard actually when you have kids and stuff. That's wonderful.
We try and go once a week, but yes.
Yes, easier said than done. But yes, that's wonderful. Did you, it's kind of hard to go on dates kind of in the COVID time. Do you mind if I ask what you did?
Well, we just went to Islands for dinner, and then I need to get some shoes for work, so that's what we did.
So Islands and a little grocery shopping.
Well, shoes.
Oh, shoes. Shoes for work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said juice. But yes, got you.
Juice.
My girlfriend and I joke because one of our favorite things to do is grocery shop together. We just like kind of going down the aisles, see what they got. I don't know. Just we chat, buy stuff. Anyway, that's wonderful. Good. So it was a good date. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Harper, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful that
better sleep today than last day. So, yeah, I think my body is kind of have an energy again.
Good. You are on the mend. Yes. Very cool. You're feeling better.
Yes, I'm feeling better.
Gotcha. Good. I'm very happy about that. It's good because you have to feel better for the weekend. Weekend's coming quick, people. It's a short week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Miss Harper. Miss Cooper, what are you grateful for? Don't mind me, by the way. I'm just playing with stuff here.
I'm grateful for my brother,
Yeah?
my little brother. I took him on a walk yesterday because it was cool enough to do so. And we haven't done it in a while just because it's been so hot. And
Yeah.
he's 2.5, and he just got so excited. I said, "You want to go on a walk?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"Walk, sissy, walk, walk." It's so cute.
It is so cute. Yeah. I always kind of wonder if that's the goal in life, is to get back to that stage of wonder, you know,
Oh, yeah. being
where
so
everything's a
excited.
big deal, and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah.
He was pointing at everything outside. He was like, "Cactus," and he asked, like, he was asking what stuff was.
Yeah,
So cute. So cute.
so cute. That's wonderful. It's great that you spend time with your
Thing, I got
brother.
him, he has this doll, baby doll that he likes, and I got him a stroller for it, and he insisted that he take it outside, so while we were on our walk, he was pushing his little baby in the stroller.
So cute. I love it.
So
I really do.
cute.
It is cute. Awesome. All right, so for baby brothers, full of wonder, walks in the cool air, and dolls and strollers. I love it. Yeah, that's
He
fantastic.
definitely loves it.
That's so cool. It's great. Miss Hunter, what are you grateful for today? Can you hear me, Miss Hunter?
So I can only hear I heard you say, "What are you grateful for today?" But I didn't hear you say Miss Hunter. So
Yes.
I'm just like, la-di-da.
And I thought you were being like pensive, like you were thinking. You're like, And then I realized, after a while, I realized she didn't hear me. Yeah, so,
No worries.
yeah, so you, Miss Hunter, what are you
I'm
grateful for today?
Yeah, I'm grateful for my van, my purple van. It's it actually, like, the mirror fell off last night when I closed the door. The driver's side mirror just fall down, and I had some battery issues. So I had a lot of crazy things happen yesterday, but I'm still grateful for my van. So
Yeah. It's like a van right out of the 70s. Like the purple.
I love it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
I love that. Well, how long have you had it?
I've had it for 4 months.
Oh, okay. So you bought this van used, and
Yeah,
it's your
and
baby
someone
now.
already painted it that color, so.
Oh, I wouldn't change that. Yeah. No.
You're probably the only one. A lot of people don't like the color.
You know what? As I get older, I like weird. The weirder, the better. Like everything's plain and beige and bleh. It's like I'd rather when I look out in the parking lot and I see your van, I'm like, oh, Miss Hunter's here. I don't say that with anybody else because I can't recognize their cars. They're all black or gray or white or whatever. Yeah, so I love it. I love it.
You're the only adult who likes it so far. I get a lot of children who are like, oh my God!
Yes.
They just love the van. They're like, Mommy, can I get a van like that?
That's the connection. I'm essentially a child, so that's good. Yeah, you let your freak flags fly. That's awesome. Awesome. Miss Nguyen. Hi. What are you grateful for today?
Hi, everybody. I get for my husband,
Yeah?
and he have in the mail, have in the contract with LG. I love that. And you understand?
Thank you. You're reading my face really well. You grateful for your husband, and did you get the contract in the mail? And you're grateful for that? Is that what you said? No.
No, contract with in the LG.
Contract in the mail.
LG. LG in the mean.
You gonna type this?
LG coming.
LG coming?
Yeah.
I still don't. What's,
Phone
And
company?
then we together.
what's
Are you
LG?
talking about phone company?
Yeah, LG company and then
TV.
PP and electric and something. And
Oh,
so he worked with them, and I very happy because in the two company both work together. I very happy about that.
gotcha. Now I understand.
Yeah,
Okay, so your utilities and stuff are getting hooked up. I hope.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think in the COVID and very difficult for all the company and something. But he so get in the contractor. I very happy about that.
Oh, good. The contractor. Now, all right, got the whole thing. Yes, got it. Cool.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that because I think he happy too. But I get for him and the more work with them. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
Yay. Good.
good.
That's fantastic. I was just sitting here thinking, like, obviously I have a little hard time understanding you, which is fine. But
Yeah.
I was just thinking about your point of view. Like, this is what you deal with all the time when I'm lecturing. Meaning, it's hard for you to understand me all the time, and I'm talking for 2 hours, and I was just thinking how hard that must be. You're at school, you're trying to learn, and half the time you're like, I don't know what my teacher just said. And I was feeling for you. I was experiencing a little bit what it's like to be you. I was flipping the table.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard on all of us, Mr. Tapscott.
I try. I try to understand. I try to see what you're doing. Sometimes I not understand about something you talk, but you do something with hand and something. So I so understand about that.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's why I set up the camera this way today, because I'm hoping to get more like action going.
Yeah, so that's why you see, and after I see video, you talk with all and the teacher, and we talk with all the student, and so I ask my husband, what mean, and so he say to me, and so I understand. So that's why I need in the video again.
Good. So that's good that we're recording them, so you can go back through them with your husband.
Yeah.
Thank your husband for me.
Yeah, I thank you a lot because when I go to school, I talk with the Jenny, Hunter, and some girl in the school.
Yeah.
I think my better before. You can see in the first time I send for you video, I talk and my English not too well, but now my English better. I can talk with everybody. Before I talk very little with everybody.
Yeah. No, I sincerely mean this. Your English is fantastic. Sometimes I don't catch your accent, but your English is fantastic. Yeah. And I'm always amazed when somebody who doesn't speak a Romance language starts speaking a Romance language, because we're worlds apart language-wise. You're doing fantastic. Yes.
Yeah. So you can see some in the homework you send for me. I try to in the translation one and try to in the C1 English and translation.
Yes, I got you.
Yeah.
I do. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for teaching me.
Well, good. In 8 months, you're going to be great. This is going to be perfect.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Miss Felix Osuna?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for Netflix. I
Yeah?
love watching Netflix. Yeah. Right now, I'm watching 100. It's such a good show. It's my second
Wait,
time watching
which one is? What show?
100.
The 100?
Yeah. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I started watching it a while ago, but I'm such a Netflix addict, and I'm so like squirrel that I started like watching all these other ones, and oh my God, I'm all over the place. Yes. Yes, I love Netflix though.
Me too.
Yeah. It's the best, like, it's $10 a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best money I've ever spent. Yeah. I think I spend too much time though watching it. I really do. You know, like,
Right. I love Lucifer too. Such a good show.
the what?
Lucifer? Lucifer.
Oh, Lucifer. Yeah, Lucifer. Sorry, Lucifer. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that one. I know what you're talking about, though. I thought about it. Yeah.
It's really good too.
I've been trying to watch documentaries on there so that I at least feel like I didn't waste 3 hours of my life each night. But anyway, I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, I'm glad. I love it too. So you're grateful for Netflix. Anything else?
No, that's it.
No. Cool. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Miss Yanez, what are we grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my dad because he changed my car battery for me instead of making me do it like he said he was going to do. But
Oh, Dad.
yeah,
Dads are the best.
they really are.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when they do those little things. Change your car battery. I bet when you get the little sticker for your license plate, you make sure it gets on your car because you'll just let it sit on the table for a month.
Yeah,
kind
and
of
he's
stuff.
always like, you have to do everything because I'm not around. But then I just wait until he gets home. I'm like, hey, I couldn't do it.
Right.
Do you want to finish?
Oh, it's so cute. Good. Good. I'm glad you have such a wonderful father. I'm sure he's secretly, like, he wants you to do it, but he secretly likes that he does it for you and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Anything else, by the way? I just don't want to cut you off. No. Thank you, Miss Giannis. Miss Torres, what are you grateful for today, Miss Torres?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I'm grateful for this beautiful morning. It feels so good. I opened the door. And I am grateful for my son. He's been doing homeschool, and on his breaks, he helps me around the house. He helps me with the little sister. And then he gets the meat or the vegetables or whatever. And then when I come home, I cook. So he's so helpful. So I'm grateful for him.
Yeah, what a nice young man you're raising there. That's very impressive. Very, very cool. Yeah, that's wonderful. Mr. Kandaris, what are you grateful for today, sir?
Yep.
I'm grateful that one of my best friends moved back to Arizona.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's passed out in the other room right now.
Cool. So he's very close.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Is he going to be staying with you for a while?
Yeah, he's gonna get his own place with a mutual friend of ours.
Very cool.
But yeah, for now he's just crashing here.
Were you born and raised here, sir?
Raised, not born. I was born in Michigan.
But all right, got it. But you've been here a long time, so you got a kind of a tight circle of friends that you've been with for a long time. Yeah, I love that. That's very cool. Very,
That was
very
pretty much established just in high school though, so.
Got it. Okay. So last few years. Very cool. Awesome. That's great. Thanks, sir. Miss Baladik. Hello. What are you grateful for today, madam?
I'm thankful for my car rides to school and to work because then I get to listen to my podcast. So it's just calming, even though traffic sucks.
Yeah.
It calms you down. So.
Do you listen to a particular podcast?
No, just like I don't know, like the serial killer podcast where they just like talk about that, or ones about like meditation or stories on that. I don't know, it's interesting to me.
Got it. So like meditation or serial killers kind of calm you down. Yeah.
Just a mix of things. I don't know.
Yeah. Kind of zen or creepy. Yeah. I love it. No, I got you. It is. It's nice to listen. I love podcasts now. I never thought I'd be like that, but I'm like, I get all excited if I have to go do like some yard work or drive or something where I can listen to them. They're great. Fantastic. Miss Monreal, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful that I don't have any more children in school.
Oh, all your kids are out of school?
I don't have to be dealing. Huh?
All your kids are raised, essentially?
I'm sorry?
All of your kids are...
Yeah, I finished up with my last one this last year. So when I hear people talking about having to deal with the homeschooling, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. If you ever wonder why I'm so happy every day, it's because I'm just like you. Yeah, I love my kids, but they're raised, they have jobs, they own their own houses. It's fantastic. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. And now you're in school. They're out of school, you're in school.
I know. Yeah.
It's a crazy world. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, ma'am. We got Harper Hunter. I'm looking at the list of everybody to make sure that I did not. Yeah, I think that's everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Questions from yesterday about the shoulder girdle complex that we are still working on. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time on this. We're not going to spend 2 days on it. We're going to spend 2 weeks on and off on it, easily. Questions? Thoughts? When you were combing your hair today, did you think, gosh, I am really using my shoulder girdle complex a lot today? Yeah? Okay. Well, then let me ask you questions about the shoulder girdle complex. Yeah? Cool, cool, cool. Miss Torres, what 3 bones make up the shoulder girdle complex?
The humerus, scapula, and clavicle.
Yes. Cool. Thank you very much. Miss Monreal, what is the joint called that what's the joint called that attaches my sternum to my clavicle? My sternum to my clavicle.
Sternoclavicular joint.
Bam! You nailed it. Yes, that's exactly what it's called. Thank you very much. The sternoclavicular joint. Cool. Miss Bilotic, what is the joint called that attaches the clavicle to the acromion process? Or I really should say the acromion process to the clavicle, just to be more helpful to you.
I'm looking for it right now. I don't really know.
Okay. So remember we talked about, do not be sorry. Do not be sorry. We're all here to learn, and remember, I don't believe in teaching, I believe in drilling. So I'm just training you. Trust me, I'll ask you so many times that you'll hate me, and you'll know it. Don't worry. So, remember we talked about street intersections? That street intersections, we call like this intersection out in front of Gateway, we call it the names of the 2 streets that come together. We'll call it Bell and 29th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So if the acromion process is one street and the clavicle is another street, we just put those words together. But we don't want to say acromion process, so we say acromioclavicular. So say that and you'll be right. Acromioclavicular joint.
Acromioclavicular joint?
Yeah! You just did it. You're awesome. You're awesome. Mr. Kandaras, where the glenoid fossa of the scapula and the humerus come together, what joint is that called?
Well, you said what type of joint is it? Or is
No,
it
great. I love what you're thinking, but no, what's the name of it? So where the glenoid fossa and the scapula come together, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Where the glenoid fossa of the scapula and the humerus come together, what's this joint called? Not what type of joint is it, but what's the name of this joint?
glenoid scapula joint? I don't know.
That is wrong, but brilliant. Thank you. So what I liked about his answer was he's remembering the street intersections and he's trying to run the words together. Thank you, sir. I'd actually rather you make that type of mistake than get it right and not understand. It's the glenohumeral joint. This is your humerus. This is your glenoid fossa. Glenohumeral joint. Yeah?
Okay.
Cool. But you have the right thinking. You really did.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Miss Melodic, what's the joint called between the acromion process and the clavicle?
The stern.
No, the acromion process and the
Sternoclavicular one.
no, that's the joint between the sternum and the clavicle. But what's the joint called between the acromion process and the clavicle? No stress.
The acromioclavicle joint.
Yeah, the acromioclavicular joint. Thank you. That's awesome. Mr. Kandars, what's the name of the joint where the scapula and the humerus meet? That the glenoid fossa and the humerus?
Humerus joint?
Yeah, glenohumeral joint. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. Cool. Let me get back here so people can see. Miss Yanez, what kind of bone am I holding up here? What's this bone called?
The scapula.
Yes, it is the scapula. What is this thing that runs across the back of it here?
The spine of the scapula.
You are exactly right. So you're doing so well. If I run my finger up the spine of the scapula, all of a sudden I get out to this process on the outside here. Do you know what that process is called that the spine of the scapula turns into?
The acromion process.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Felix Osuna.
Yes.
What's this bony thing that's on the back of the scapula here that runs across here?
The spine scapula.
Spine of the scapula, yes. What's the fossa on top of the spine of the scapula called? What is this fossa above the spine of the scapula called?
Is it the superior notch?
Pretty much. That's the superior notch here, but this is the supra above, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spinous, spine of the scapula, fossa.
Mm-hmm. Supraspinous fossa.
Yeah. What's the place underneath? What's the fossa underneath the spine of the scapula called?
Infraspinatum also?
Yeah. You just said underneath the spine of the scapula in Latin. Thank you. Infraspinous fossa. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yes. Hey, Miss Melodic, what's the joint between the clavicle and the acromion process called? The acromion process and the clavicle.
The acromioclavicle.
Yeah, acromioclavicular.
Or clavicle, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Mr. Kandaris, what's this ball and socket joint here with my scapula and my humerus called, where the glenoid fossa and the humerus meet?
Scapular humeral joint.
Close. And again, you made a mistake that shows you understand how stuff's named. It should be called scapular humeral joint, but it's called glenal because of the glenoid fossa humeral joint. So glenohumeral joint. Thank you, sir.
Humeral joint.
Cool, thank you. Miss Nguyen.
Yes.
Yes. Hey, I'm going to do an action here, right? I'm going to raise my shoulders up. What do you call that when you raise your shoulders up? When they're going up like an elevator, what do you call that?
Adduction. I don't know.
No, it's okay. Not adduction and not abduction. When they go up like an elevator, Always trying to give you guys clues.
Oh. Later lesson.
Yeah. So this would be an elevation, like an elevator. Elevation. Yeah?
Elevation, yeah.
Cool. If they go down, what do you call it? I'm so depressed right now.
Go down in the depression.
Depression, yes! I'm not depressed anymore. Thank you. So, what's this?
What did?
Yeah.
Elevation.
Yes! Elevation. And what's this? Depression.
Depression.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Miss Nguyen, can you
Yeah.
show me an elevation of your shoulders? Just show me with your body an elevation of your shoulders. That is your shoulders. Now I want you to elevate them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you show me elevate them again? That was great. Elevate your shoulders. Now depress them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Elevation, depression. Awesome. Cool. Thank you very much. Miss Hunter. Hi. What action am I performing right now?
Abduction.
Abduction. Yes, you're absolutely right. What action am I forming now?
Adduction.
Add. I'm adding it back to your body. You are brilliant. You said it right. At least that's what I heard. Okay. What am I doing now, Miss Hunter?
Oh man. That one is lateral adduction or lateral.
Yeah, wait. You're right. I'm adding them back together. You're right. My arms are out horizontally, and I'm adding them together.
Oh, right. Is it horizontal adduction?
Yes. Horizontal adduction, right? You're adding them together.
Okay.
And so what's this?
This one's lateral extension.
No, just flip the thing. So if this was horizontal adduction, what's this?
Oh, horizontal abduction.
Thank you. And by the way, your use of words like lateral and stuff were really spot on. You're right. My arm is moving laterally. Like it was not a bad answer at all. At all. It shows that you're really kind of grasping concepts. Again, I'd rather you make these type of mistakes because I'd rather you conceptually understand what we're doing. Brilliant. So really quickly for everybody, what am I doing now? Miss Hunter? Did you freeze? I can't go anymore.
Oh, I thought you said for everybody, not me.
I said, yeah, I meant like for everybody's edification, for everybody's learning. Miss Hunter, could you review these one more time? What am I doing right now?
Is this another abduction?
Yeah, same thing.
Or is it different?
Yeah. By the way, I think I'm confusing all of you because I ask you the same questions over and over again. I'm drilling you. That's why I keep going back to people and asking the same questions. I'm just trying to get it in your head. So so I think sometimes you're overthinking it. So you're absolutely right. It was abduction this time and it's abduction this time. So what am I doing now, Miss Hunter?
Adduction.
Adduction. And what am I doing now?
Horizontal adduction.
Yes!
Adduction.
Adduction. And what am I doing now?
Horizontal abduction.
Yes!
Abduction.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was awesome. Brilliant. Cool. Mr. Kandaris. What's this joint called? Yes! Glenohumeral joint. Awesome. Love it. Miss Bilotic, what is the joint between the acromion process and the clavicle called?
The acromioclavicular.
Yes! Yes! Nailed it. Thank you. Acromioclavicular. Awesome. Miss Cooper! Miss Cooper, these motions are harder to see, so I apologize for that. Oh, let's do this first, actually. This will be easier to see. Miss Cooper, where'd you go, Miss Cooper? Okay. Miss Cooper, what motion am I performing now with both my arms in front of my body?
Is it still abduction?
Nope, because abductions and adductions happen out to the side.
Oh,
This is in
well, then
front,
that'd be-
and it starts with an F, and it's in front.
You're not flexing.
I am flexing. It's a
What?
flexion. Flexion. I don't know what you think. I'm flexing. I mean, I'm not flexing, but it's called a flexion. Yeah.
I need
Flexion.
to stop doubting the first answer that comes in my head because I was right.
Yeah, throw it out there. What do you got to lose? Anyway, what am I doing now?
Flexion and then
What's the opposite of flexion?
depression.
Up, down. Although I like what you're saying because they went down. But they're going back. Opposite of flexion is always extension.
Oh, okay. I was gonna be funny and say like unflexion or something, but
It is. Extension is unflexion. And flexion is unextension. All right, so let's review again. What am I doing now?
you're doing flexion
Yep. What am I doing now?
and extension.
Thank you. What am I doing now? Say flexion.
Flexion.
What am I doing now?
And then extension.
Yes. What am I doing now?
Still flexion.
Yep. What am I doing now?
And then extension.
Yes. What am I doing now?
Depression.
Say flexion.
Flexion.
What am I doing
And
now?
I keep confusing myself. And then extension.
Yes. What am I doing now?
Flexion.
Yeah. What am I doing now?
Extension.
What am I doing now?
Flexion.
What am I doing now?
Extension.
Yay! Thank you! Now, if you're learning my teaching style, in 2 minutes I'm going to come back and ask you that question again. And you're going to be like, and you're going to overthink it. So don't overthink it when I come back and ask again.
Overthinking. I got
Okay,
it.
you got it. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. Miss Harper. Hi, Miss Harper.
Yes, sir.
What do we call it when I like kind of rotate my shoulders in?
That's some protraction.
Yeah, you're not doing anything wrong. So this gets really confusing. When my scapulas move forward, that's protraction, and when they come back, that's retraction. I'm just talking about actually rolling my shoulder in. So when that happens, actually what happens is this just rolls in. It rotates in. So what do you call it when you rotate your shoulders in?
Rotation.
Yes. What kind of rotation? How do I tell it's different from rotating them out? If I rotate them in towards the midline,
Medial rotation.
medial rotation, yes! Okay, so that's me rolling them in. If I roll them out, what's that?
Lateral rotation.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, legs can be medially rotated too. Have you ever seen somebody kind of walk like a pigeon-toed? Where their toes are together? So, with this little guy, his toes are in like that. What kind of rotation is that?
Like inversion?
No, I know what you're thinking. But I'm talking about this rotated in. And this
That's medial.
medial rotation, yeah. It's almost like I'm asking you guys the same questions over and over again. What if they're turned out?
That's lateral.
Rotation, yeah. And if this little guy's shoulders rotated in, what's that?
That's the medial.
Yes, and if they're rotated out,
That's the lateral.
yes. Awesome, thank you so much. Yes. Hey, Miss Bilotic, what's the joint called between the acromion process and the clavicle?
The acromioclavicular.
Bam. Thank you, ma'am. Hey, what's the joint, Miss Melodic, called between the sternum and the clavicle?
Was it the sternoclavicular?
Yes! That's 2 joints. Nailed. Bam. Thank you. Mr. Kandaris? What's this joint called, sir? For the... Cool. And sir, what's the joint called between the sternum and the clavicle? Yes, sir. And what's the joint called between the acromion process and the clavicle?
AC or acromioclavicular joint.
Yes. By the way, he said AC, and he's actually right. It's a shorthand term that we use for joints, and that people call this the AC joint. They mean acromioclavicular. Keep saying acromioclavicular, but he's spot on right. It's a very common abbreviation. Yeah, cool, cool, cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Miss Hanson. Miss Hanson.
Yes.
How are we feeling this morning? Good?
Good.
Good? Your son's back there?
Yeah, he is.
Hey, dude. How we doing, buddy?
He may answer your question, I don't know.
That's good. Well, you're allowed to use your son for help because you're going to need it. Okay. So let's review. We've gone over an awful lot of stuff, right? So let's review some stuff. So, and don't worry, if you can't figure it out, I'll go back to the person that I asked the question to the first time and ask them to help you review it. So don't worry. Cool? Okay. What am I doing with my shoulders right now?
Elevation.
Yeah. What am I doing with them now?
Depression.
Yes. What am I doing with my arms now?
Abduction.
Yes. What am I doing with my arms now?
Adduction.
Yes. What am I doing with my arms now?
Lateral adduction.
Close. But let's ask Miss Hunter. Miss Hunter, what am I doing with my arms right now?
Horizontal adduction.
Thank you very much, Miss Hunter. Miss Hanson, what am I doing with my arms right now?
Horizontal adduction.
Adduction. Cool. What am I doing with my arms now?
Horizontal abduction.
Yes. That's fantastic. Miss Hanson, what am I doing with my arms now?
Flexion.
Yes. What am I doing with my arms now?
Extension.
Yeah. What am I doing with my neck now?
Flexion.
Yeah. What am I doing with my neck now?
Extension.
What am I doing with my torso now?
Flexion.
Yeah. What am I doing with my torso now?
Extension.
What am I doing with my massive biceps now?
Flexion.
Yeah. What am I doing now?
Extension.
What am I doing with my wrist now?
Flexion.
What am I doing with the wrist now?
Extension.
What am I doing with my little fingertips now?
Flexion.
What am I doing with fingertips now?
Extension.
Yeah. If my shoulders roll in, which is really hard to see, but if they were to actually roll in towards the midline, kind of roll in, not protract, retract, just my shoulders kind of roll around what's happening is really around this ball and socket. If they were to roll in, what's that called?
Medial rotation.
Yes! And if they were to roll out?
Lateral rotation.
Yes. Awesome. Wait, what did you just say, Miss Hunter? Because I feel like it was really important. I thought we did both. Medial when we put the forearms on the back, lateral when the arm was off the table. Can you explain a little bit more?
Sorry, it was just answering Miss Petrie's question.
Oh, sorry guys.
About lab yesterday.
Ah.
For doing a move, and I couldn't remember if it was a medial rotation or a lateral rotation we're doing with the scapula.
And I don't know if this helps. I don't know what you did in lab. I don't know if this helps, but rarely are you doing one thing at a time. Like usually when I'm medially rotating, I'm also protracting. So let me explain that really quick. Usually, let's see, this is a, hold on, this is a left. This is important. Okay, can we see the skeleton kind of here? Here's the skeleton's shoulder blade here. This is a medial rotation. This is a lateral rotation, medial lateral. This is protracting, this is retracting. Quite often we do both together. I medially rotate and protract, or I retract and laterally rotate. So it's very confusing, but basically when my scapulas come forward, that's protracting. When they come back, that's retracting. When my arm rolls in, that's medial rotating. Rolls out, that's laterally rotating. Does that make sense? Kinda? Don't worry. We're gonna keep going. You guys are doing great. Okay. Miss Hanson, good job. I actually thought that was gonna be like too much, kind of like, I just wanted to kind of see where we went with it. I will do that from time to time too, and again, I'm not trying to quiz you. We're reviewing what we just went over, right? We just took everybody's stuff and put it together. Cool? Cool, cool, cool. Okay. Another concept. This one's a little tricky. But once you get it, it's not. So, if my scapula comes forward, Miss Petrie, what's this called?
A medial rotation.
No, sorry. You're on the right track, but I'm not talking about this rotating. I'm talking about the scapula coming forward. Starts with a P.
A protraction?
It is a protraction. And if it gets pulled back,
Retraction.
retraction. I'd like to retract that comment. I'd like to take it back. Retraction. She's 100% right. So when it comes forward, protraction, comes back, retraction. So protraction kind of looks, and I'm going to add to this. I realize you basically already know this. Protraction, my scapulars are coming forward. That doesn't mean my arms are rotating or not. It just means my scapula is coming forward. Retraction looks like I want to fight. What do you mean? Retracting my scapulas right now. I can retract my scapulas, by the way, medially rotate or laterally rotate. My scapulars are still retracted here. I can protract, medially rotate, laterally rotate. So they're separate moves because it's a shoulder-girdle complex that work together. But that's not the point I want to make. Can anybody give me the definition of adduction and abduction? I know you all know what it is now. You know when I'm doing this, I'm moving away or towards. But what am I moving away or towards from?
Is it the trunk?
The trunk, essentially. They get really precise and they say the midline of the body. Midline of the body. But you're right, the trunk works. So let me ask you this. Let's see. Miss Stanley. First tell me, we just did this, but first tell me, when my scapula moves forward like this, what's that called?
It looks like it's protracting.
It is protracting. When it gets pulled back, what's that called?
Retracting?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Don't doubt yourself. You're doing great. So let me ask you this question. I have not asked this question yet. You're going to have to think a little bit. When I protract, am I moving closer to or further away from the midline of the body? This is the midline.
Further away?
You are moving further away. And what do we call moving away from the midline of the body?
Abducting?
Yes. So, brilliant, by the way. Thank you. Protracting is also abduction of the scapula. Retracting is also adduction of the scapula. It's coming back towards the midline. And they're used interchangeably. Kind of confusing. So this is retraction and adduction of the scapula. This is protraction and abduction of the scapula. Because it's moving away from the midline, back. And your book will use them interchangeably. That's why I bring it up. Whew. That's a lot of stuff. Yeah. How are we feeling about that, everybody? Good. So? Miss Cooper, what action am I doing right now?
Flexion.
Yep, what action am I doing now?
Extension.
What action am I doing now?
Flexion.
What action am I doing now?
Extension.
No, still forward. More flexion.
Oh my bad, still flexion then.
Good. Basically, if I'm kind of bending and forward, in general, it's flexion. If I'm kind of opening up behind, it's extension. Good job.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Let's go and go over a few more things. Let me start a little side presentation for you. Any questions so far? Good. I know it's not completely concretized in your mind yet. That's okay. Like, I hope you're seeing what we're doing is layering stuff, right? And we come back to it and I ask you over and over again, and I'm not trying to be annoying or anything. We're just kind of going to go back over and over stuff, and after a while it'll be automatic to you. You'll be like, that's flexion, that's abduction, adduction, horizontal abduction, elevation, depression, medial rotation, lateral rotation, protraction, or abduction of the scapula, retraction or adduction of the scapula. It'll all just kind of come to you automatically. All right. Present now. A window.
I have a quick question about
yes, sir.
Flexion. So, because you can flex a muscle, the verb would be flexing, and you can do that by simply tensing your muscle, right?
Yeah.
Like if I tense my arm, you're going to see probably my tricep flex. So what, I guess like, cause you know, when you close the muscle, like flex, that's flexion, isn't that's shortening the muscle, right?
Yes.
So when you tense a muscle, and you are flexing, is that like, are you doing an act of flexion when you're flexing through just tension, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I feel like you're asking a couple of things, and I want to make these very clear. Flexing, the word we use, flexing, just kind of throw it away. It has nothing to do with flexion.
Okay.
It's just a term we use. I'm flexing my muscles. You're right. I could be extending and flexing my tricep. It's just,
yeah.
I know they sound similar and it always throws people off because they're like, well, isn't this flexion? Isn't that flexion? Flexion is, and by the way, I don't even have to be using a muscle. I could have somebody else move my arm. This is still extension. This is still flexion. And I wouldn't have to be doing any flexing at all. Like, I could move your arms and this would be called an extension and a flexion. So they're not even describing what muscles are tensing up right now. They're just describing a movement. And the word flex, really throws it off. It's really confusing.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, kind of?
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
flexing away. That works.
Yeah. Yeah, you could still use it like, hey, you want to see my guns, I'm flexing, but that's it. It's what they call a layman's term that we use for squeezing a muscle. You can say you're flexing your tricep, but I'm in an extension doing it. I'm extending to do it. My tricep extends. I'd rather you say, instead of flexion, instead of flexing, I'd rather you say contraction. You are contracting a muscle. You're contracting a muscle, right? Yes. Because muscles can only do one thing. What is that one thing, Miss Yanez?
Muscles can only pull?
Yes, they can only pull. They can only pull, they can only contract, they can only shorten. That's all they're good at. That's it. They can lengthen again, but gravity lengthens them, another muscle lengthens them again, whatever. They don't push. They only pull, they only contract, which means the same thing. They only shorten, which means the same thing. They only come together. Thank you. Well said. Okay, can everybody see the slideshow here? Good, I hope so. Awesome. You already took a test on some of this, but I didn't realize, I blew it, by the way. I didn't realize there was test questions on this far ahead, and so I hadn't even gone over some of this stuff with you, and I just want to clarify some things because they're kind of confusing. So, it's going to matter later. Why do we care about the bumps on the bones? These things we call tubercles and crests and heads and tuberosities and condyles, they're all bumps. They're all just bumps on the bones. Why do I care about bumps on bones?
Well, if it's called a bony landmark, and with the word landmark, you're probably trying to locate something, so.
Fantastic answer.
Trying to locate, yeah.
Yes. So one of the reasons is, if you know the bumps on the bones, you can find out where you are in the body. Excellent answer. And what are the bones? So the bumps on the bones are used so massage therapists can find places in the body, correct? Yes. And what is the thing that your body uses the bumps on your bones for?
Attachments.
Thank you, Ms. Torres. Attachments for what?
For joints or muscles?
Muscles, muscles basically. Tendons and ligaments. Tendons and ligaments. So, tendons attach what to bone, Ms. Torres?
Fascia?
Oh my God. You're wrong, but I love that answer. Tendons attach muscle to bone. Ligaments attach bone to bone. They're both basically the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
They're both fascia, by the way. That's why I loved your answer. But so these bumps all over here are attachment sites for tendons and ligaments to help hold your body together and help give places for the muscles to pull. So let me give you an example of that. This here is the scapula. This here is a humerus. They come together here in this joint here. Mr. Kondaris, what's this joint called again?
The glenohumeral joint.
Yes, the glenohumeral joint. Thank you very much, sir. They come together here in this joint, made up with the glenoid fossa. Hold on, just like, what's a fossa? Or a cavity?
Isn't it like an opening and notch? Like
Yeah.
Open.
Yeah, it's a depression, a notch, something that goes in. Absolutely. It may be very vague to us, but it's something that goes in. So this is the glenoid cavity or glenoid fossa. Both those would be correct answers. You can use pretty much cavity and fossa interchangeably. Anyway, cool. So this is the glenoid depression, fossa, cavity thing, and it goes in with the head of the humerus, and the head looks like a head, kind of round and stuff, which is kind of convenient because it's got to roll around in this teaspoon here. By the way, as ball and sockets go, this is a great ball, not much of a socket, which is why it's easy to dislocate your shoulder. Yeah? Okay. So, you've got bumps on the lateral side of the head of your humerus here, and this one is called the greater tubercle. Tubercle just means bump. Tuberosity just means bump. Condyle just means bump. You've got a large bump over here. You can actually feel it on people when you get good at massage. You can kind of go in there and you can start to wiggle the arm around and you can feel the bump going underneath your hand. Up in front, which is anterior, you've got a smaller bump called the lesser tubercle. Yeah? In between, you have a groove called the intertrabecular groove. If you've ever heard of interstate transport, it's transport between states. Inter actually means between in Latin. Inter. Between the tubercles, intertrabecular groove. This groove is very important, by the way. Later we're going to find out. You can feel it on people. You have to be kind of gentle because it's irritating, but you can feel this groove. So we've got laterally out the side, lateral means off to the side, I've got this big giant greater tubercle. Kind of in front, I've got this lesser tubercle. Let me give you a really quick thing about how muscles work. On top of this scapula, on top of the spine of the scapula is a fossa. A fossa. What's that fossa called on top of the spine of the scapula? Above the spine of the scapula.
Supraspinosus fossa?
Yeah, supraspinous fossa. It is above the spine of the scapula and it's a fossa. Well, there's a muscle we're going to learn about. You don't have to know this all yet, but I'm trying to kind of teach you about how joints and muscles work and where they attach. Above the spine of the scapula, it's the supraspinous fossa. Well, guess what? There's a muscle that lives there called the supraspinatus. Do you mean, Tap Scott, that if I learn this is the spine of the scapula, and I learn supra means above, and I know fossas are little indentations, I can call this the supraspinous fossa, and then it would be really easy to remember that the supraspinatus muscle lives there. So I don't really have to memorize that much stuff. Huh, okay. The supraspinatus muscle goes over here, like my finger, and grabs onto the greater tubercle. It literally grabs on the greater tubercle. That's what it does. It's anchored in the supraspinous fossa. It grabs on to the greater tubercle. This is one of your rotator cuff muscles. Yep. And muscles can only do one thing. What is that, Miss Cooper? What's the one thing they can do? They can only do one thing. Show me with your hands.
This, or this, sorry.
Thank you. They can only come together. They can only shorten. They can only contract, right? So if this muscle contracts, do you see what happens? If I pull on the greater tubercle, do you see what happens? Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. What action is that? Anybody when my arm goes out to the side?
It's an abduction.
Abduction. Miss Petrie just told us the action of the supraspinatus muscle. Did you memorize that action, Miss Petrie?
It's outwards.
Yeah. But what I meant was you didn't memorize it for that muscle because you didn't have to. Because once I know where muscles are and where they attach, I no longer have to memorize actions. I just go, wow, if I pulled on this, what would happen? The supraspinatus muscle creates an abduction of the shoulder. Now, I have other muscles that do that too, don't get me wrong, but it allows me to do this, the supraspinatus muscle. It helps initiate the movement, actually. And it attaches to the greater tubercle. Now, we're going to study that muscle later and go over all that with you. But that basic concept that muscles only pull, and if I know where they live and what they're attached to and make them shorten, if I imagine those two pieces getting closer together, I can figure out the action. That's kinesiology. It's amazing. The names on these muscles become very important because they kind of tell you about the names on these bones tell you about the muscles to come. So we found out this was the supraspinous fossa, and there's a muscle later that we're going to learn that's called the supraspinatus that lives there. This is the infraspinous fossa. We're going to find out about a muscle called the infraspinatus muscle that lives there. It's one of your rotator cuff muscles too, and it's going to live underneath there. We'll learn about these later. We're still on bones. We're still on bones. We're still on bones. But I'm just explaining to you why you might care about these names. Underneath the scapula, who can tell me what the fossa is underneath the scapula? Like a train that runs underneath the ground. What's the fossa underneath the scapula called?
Subfossa?
I'm sorry, just say it one more time, Miss Hanson.
Subfossa?
Subscapular fossa, yes.
Scapular.
Yeah. But by the way, she's right. Subfossa. It's the fossa underneath. Subscapular fossa. Yes. There's a muscle that we're going to learn about later that's called the subscapularis. Lives right there. So the muscles become a lot easier to learn when you kind of learn about the bones. And that's another rotator cuff muscle. Cool. So, the other thing I only briefly touched on yesterday after I realized you'd already taken a test on it was that these tubercles, like this greater tubercle, it's got a bump here, but it's also got kind of a crest that falls down. It's not very obvious to us. It's a very tiny crest that kind of comes down. And we care about that because muscles like to attach onto these crests too. It's an unusual part of the bone, and muscles like to attach onto these crests. In fact, there's a very powerful muscle that attaches onto this crest right here of the greater tubercle, which is your pectoralis major. It allows you to do bench press and things like that. But anyway, so this area that falls off a tubercle is called the crest. So this is the crest of the greater tubercle, and if you fall off the smaller tubercle, it's the crest of the lesser tubercle. They're just called crests. If you come down this arm, You cannot see it on this bone well, but you can see it in the slide a lot better. There's a bump here. It's called the deltoid tuberosity. You can sometimes find it on your arm. It's kind of a bump right in here. It's a little bit hard to find. Guess what muscle inserts into the deltoid tuberosity? Anybody want to take a guess what muscle inserts into the deltoid tuberosity? Sorry, I didn't. What was that, Miss Petrie?
Deltoid.
The deltoid inserts in the deltoid tuberosity? Yes, the deltoid inserts in the deltoid tuberosity. Of course it does. That's why they called it the deltoid tuberosity. So my deltoid actually comes down and all of it hooks into this little bump here called the deltoid tuberosity. So these bumps are very important. Yes. You've got condyles on both sides of this bone. Muscles like to attach to these too. They love it. The condyle that's on the lateral side is called the lateral condyle, which means, what's the condyle on the medial side called, Miss Stanley?
The condyle on the medial side?
Yeah.
It's the medial condyle?
Yes! Awesome. Cool. So, yes, I explained that this whole area is kind of like called the condyle, the lateral condyle, and then the tippy point of it's called the epicondyle. It means the epicenter of it. I'm not too worried about that, by the way. I don't get too nitpicky about condyles. I just want to know this is a lateral thing. And there is a ridge coming off the condyle too, just like there are ridges coming down from these tubercles. This ridge coming down there, but it's actually coming up. This ridge that's found above the condyle on the lateral side. Miss Hanson, what's this ridge called that's above the condyle on the lateral side? It's in the slide too.
Lateral supracondyle ridge.
Yes.
Diagonal lip ridge.
Yeah, that's perfect. What did she just say? Lateral, off to the side, supra, above the condyle, condylar ridge. She just described a location, supracondylar ridge. So what would be the ridge on the medial side above the condyle called? Miss Felix Osuna. What would be the ridge on the medial side above the condyle called? And it's in the picture too.
It's medial supracondylar ridge.
Yeah! Beautiful. Medial supracondylar ridge. By the way, some of these words are really long. I get it. We're just kind of learning a new language. Just stick with me. By the way, just to explain a couple of things, probably don't even need you to memorize this part, just to understand it. Down at the bottom, you've got this really funky shaped bone, right? And it's got this thing there called the capitulum. Can you all see that in the slideshow? Capitulum and trochlea and radial fossa and coronoid fossa. So, hold on, I've got to see if I have another. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the skeleton. Maybe you can. Maybe we can. Good. So, it's a little hard to show, but the trochlea is just this very cool thing that makes up your elbow that lets like your other two bones that form your forearm fit into, and we call that the trochlea. So it just makes a really neat hinge. The capitulum is this really cool thing that your radius bone later, I'm just explaining why they're there. You don't have to memorize this yet. We're going to learn more. Don't worry. But I don't want you to just have a word in your head like capitulum and not understand like what it's about. Capitulum is this place where your radial bone rotates around. It can actually rotate around it. And it's the reason I can flip my hand over. We never think about this, but when we turn our wrist over, these bones cross. So if you look at your bones right now, I've got two bones here. When I turn my hand over, one crosses over the other. They actually go like this to this. Anyway, the capitulum lets the radius rotate around that. So, what are the two fossas there for? The radial fossa and the coronoid fossa. And again, you don't have to memorize these. When these bones come back like this, which the skeleton right now is doing this, they start to run into the humerus. They actually run into the humerus. And those fossas are little indentations to give them more room to bend more. Without those fossas, I would do this. That's as far as I could go. But I've got a little indentation there that lets the bone go further. You can't feel these. They're deep inside your arm. But the point is, this bone would kind of run into this bone when it's doing this, but there's a little indentation there that lets it go further. That's what they're there for, the radial fossa and the coronoid fossa. Again, I don't really need you to memorize that right now. I just like to not have words just flying at you without some backstory to them. We're going to learn more about those later. Cool? Okay. Oh, by the way, cute. This is the backside of a humerus, this slide. Backside of the humerus. And if you see our little skeleton here, when you bring your arm out, your elbow wants to actually hit into your humerus, and if you did not have your olecranon fossa, my arm would only come out to about there. The olecranon fossa lets me take it out the rest of the way. It lets this arm fit all the way up there, otherwise it would run into bone here. So it makes room for the bone. It's kind of cool. Check it out in the skeleton when you come to school today. Olecranon fossa. By the way, your elbow is called your olecranon process, but we'll get to that later. Okay. There's only one thing I want to say about the clavicle here. The clavicle is your collarbone, right? The end closest to the sternum is called the sternal end. It also happens to be the most medial. The end closest to the acromion process is the acromial end. It's the most lateral. It's just a way of talking. It's like, yeah, my house is by Circle K. My house is by Fry's. That's all they're saying, literally. So they're like, oh yeah, the sternal end. You mean the end by the sternum? Yeah. Or the medial end? Yeah. The lateral end or the acromial end. So don't overthink that kind of stuff. A lot of this stuff sounds more confusing than it is. Yeah? Yes. Okay. All right. Woo! Okay. So, they're going to talk to you about bony landmarks and trails, and you're going to be doing a lot of this in lab, so I'm not going to go into gory detail about this at all. But I will tell you, it is very handy to know certain things like the spine of the scapula turns into the acromion process, because that means if I find somebody's acromion process, I can travel it into the spine of their scapula. And if I can find the spine of your scapula, I can find the supraspinous fossa. And if I can find the spine of your scapula, I can find the infraspinous fossa. And if I can find all this stuff, I can travel it around here. So the point is you can use these landmarks, these edges, to find your way. Like a lot of times in a scapula, all you can find is the inferior angle on somebody's back. Once you found that, you can kind of travel up and find the edges and move on to other wonderful things. That's why we do trail guides. Bony landmarks, as Mr. Kandaris correctly pointed out to us. Boom. This is something else I want you to think about. Let's follow a little trail here together. Okay? Let's see who I got here. Okay. Mr. Kandaris, we haven't exactly covered this, but I think you'll know the answer. What's this like breastplate bone here called? It starts with an S. Sternum. Thank you. Sternum. Miss Cooper, what's this bone here called? Your collarbone. Yes, you said it, but I couldn't hear you.
Clavicle.
Clavicle. So we got sternum and clavicle. Cool. Miss Stanley, what is the joint between the sternum and the clavicle called?
The sternoclavicular.
Yes, ma'am. You're exactly correct. So I'm going to start at somebody's sternum, which if you can find on anybody. I can go past the sternoclavicular joint. I can follow the clavicle down here, right? And the clavicle will eventually meet this bone here. This is my finger. I can actually do this on somebody. I'll eventually run into this bone here on their kind of their shoulder pad here, this bone here. Do you know what this process is called, Miss Hunter? This process out here.
Is that the acromenial process?
Yes, acromion process. Acromenial could be more correct too, I don't know. But acromion process, acromenial, absolutely. So we started at the sternum, we went past the sternoclavicular joint onto the clavicle, and we got to the acromion process. Miss Petrie, what is the joint between the acromion process and the clavicle called?
Sternoclavicular joint.
Oh, that's over here. We went on the sternoclavicular joint, we went down the clavicle, and we got over here to the acromion process. What's the joint between the acromion process and clavicle called?
The acromial clavicular joint.
I know, it sounds like you're drunk. Clavicular joint. I have the same problem.
Acromioclavicular joint.
Yes, I think I should all call you up on a Friday night and make you say it. Yeah. Okay. So, if I follow that, I've now passed 2 joints of the shoulder-girdle complex. I'm now on the acromion process. The acromion process turns into the what, Miss Hanson? Another feature of the scapula.
Glenohumerus joint.
I know why you're saying that, but look at this here. The you're right, that joint is below there. Don't worry about a joint. This acromion process actually turns into the what of the scapula? What's this feature here called?
The spine.
Spine of the scapula.
What is it?
Spine of the head, spine of the cat, spine of the femur.
Spine of the
the scapula. Yeah, cool. Spine of the scapula. Awesome. So all I'm trying to point out here to everybody is these bony landmarks are very helpful because if you're a really good massage therapist, by the way, let me stop for a second. I don't know if I really made this clear before. Anybody can rub a back. Anybody in the world can rub somebody and make them feel good. It takes no education whatsoever. Anybody can do what I can do. Anybody in the world with no training. However, it might take them 17 days to accidentally stumble across what I can find in 1 minute. So my 10-minute massage might be more effective than their 10-hour massage. What we're learning here to do is be accurate massage therapists. We don't want to be like, oh, I've got shoulder problems, and we're like, well, how's that going? How about this? No, not. Okay, well, I found your shoulder now. How's this? Right? We need to literally be like, I think there's a problem in this person's acromial clavicular joint, and I am so good that I know that raising it and elevating and depressing this will actually start to open that joint up, and I'll actually be able to get inside it and actually massage inside the joint a little bit, like advanced massage therapy. So that's why we're doing all this nitpicky stuff. If you just want to rub somebody's shoulders, okay. But I want you guys to be badass massage therapists. Yeah? All right. So, we start at the sternum. We go past the Miss Balotic. Let's review really quick. Sorry, you're just next on my list. So what this bone here that we've hardly talked about, but this chest plate bone is called the what? Starts with an S.
The sternum.
Sternum, yes. And what's your collarbone called?
The clavicle.
Yep. And what's the joint between the sternum and the clavicle called?
The sternoclavicular.
Yes. And so I go cruising by the sternoclavicular joint down the clavicle, and I run into the acromion process. What's the joint between the acromion process and the clavicle called?
The acromioclavicular joint.
Nailed it. Then I go rounding around the acromion process, and the acromion process turns into the what, Miss Nguyen?
Yes.
Yes, Miss Nguyen, as I run my finger across this acromion process, it turns into another part of the scapula. What's this thing sticking out from the scapula?
Super uncle, super.
Not above it. What is it? Kind of sticks out like a spine on my scapula.
You can show me again?
So, what do you call this? The acromion process turns into this other feature, this other part of the scapula. What do we call this part of the scapula that sticks out here?
Super uncle.
Not super, not above it, and not below it. What is it? Kind of sticks out like a spine on the scapula. Some people even say it's the spine of the, or the spine of the scapula.
I'm sorry about that.
So you're actually answering a harder question. I just want everybody to realize the acromion process turns into the spine of the scapula. Yeah? This is the spine of the scapula. Supraspinous is above it, infraspinous is below it, but this is the spinous. This is the spine of the scapula. Spine of the scapula. Acromion process turns into the spine of the scapula. Hope I didn't lose you. So really quickly, we go from the sternum to the sternoclavicular joint, to the clavicle, to the acromioclavicular joint, to the acromion process, to the spine of the scapula. I can actually do this on anybody, right? And then all of a sudden, I get to the edge, to the border of the scapula. Miss Harper, what border, what edge of the scapula is this?
It's the medial.
The medial border, because it's on the medial side. Brilliant. I could follow this up and get to an angle up here if I wanted to. I could follow it up and get to an angle up here. What would that angle be called? Miss Harper, you're on a roll.
That's the superior.
The superior angle. She just watched me. She's like, he's pointing up. It must be superior. I could come down this medial border and I'd get to an angle down here. Miss Yanez. Miss Yanez, what would this angle down here be called? I think you're muted.
The inferior angle?
Inferior angle. And then Miss Monreal, please tell me you're there. Miss Monreal, if I rounded this corner and started to head to this outside border, I'm going to switch. Miss Torres, what's this outside border called? Miss Torres.
Ladder.
I got it.
Lateral.
Lateral border. Cool. Now.
It just takes two and then answer.
I know. I don't mean to be, yeah. I just wasn't sure. I was like, what if she's taking a bathroom break? And I'm like, I'm going to keep going. So, this is going to be confusing because I'm switching scapulas.
I'm here.
But Miss Hanson, follow me on this, Miss Hanson. Miss Hanson and everybody follow me, but we just took this lovely little ride. Here's the lovely ride we took. We started at the sternum. We went through the sternoclavicular joint. We went to the clavicle. We got to the acromioclavicular joint. We got to the acromion process, which turned into the spine of the scapula. The spine of the scapula took us all the way to the medial border. We went up briefly to the superior angle. We went down to the inferior angle. We were actually able to trace up the lateral border. I came up this lateral border and I popped into a joint here. Now what's this joint, Miss Hanson?
Glenohumerus joint.
Glenohumeral joint, yes. Thank you. So I just wanted to tie that back in. All right. So anyway, I'm just trying to point out how all this stuff connects and how you find your way in the dark. Because remember, You're massaging somebody through layers and layers of skin. And I've actually watched massage therapists like visually try to figure out where they're at, and I'm like, you can forget it. I mean, I visually will look at you to just tell where your head is, your neck is, but I am not trying to find this stuff underneath your skin. And here's the problem with scapulas, by the way. On a real person, in real normal situations, okay? If the scapula retracts or adducts, it's here. Okay? Underneath the skin, you can't see it. If it protracts or abducts, it's all the way over here. You can get all the way to the side of the body. It was here. Now, can you imagine looking for it here? You would not find it. It goes all the way back here. You'd look for it over here. You would not find it. It can elevate. You'd be looking down here. It can depress. You'd be looking up here. It can rotate. So you'd be kind of going, I don't know what's what. It can rotate this way. So it is a hard little sucker to find. And they move on people. That's why we move your arms around, is actually move on purpose. And you need bony landmarks to find stuff. You need to be like, oh, that huge thing, that's the acromion process. That I can find. Well, I know if I go this way on it, I'm going to run into the clavicle. If I go this way, I'm going to run into the spine and scapula and the medial border. You need to be able to drive in the dark. Does that, at least that concept make sense? Do we need a break? 5-minute break? Some of your eyes are rolling back in your heads. Yeah? All right, take 5, everybody. I really appreciate it. Take 5. Yeah, go have a shot of coffee, a Red Bull. Yeah, whatever gets you through the day. Continue. Okay. So, I've got some slides up here, some little things to kind of remember about each of these areas of the body. Yeah? Each of these areas of the body. So the spine and the scapula is kind of considered the base camp for finding other stuff. You can see why, because if you're on somebody's back, when they're laying down, this is the thing that really sticks up. And remember, the spine and the scapula leads me everywhere. The spine and the scapula will lead me to the acromion process and back to the clavicle in the front of the body. It'll lead me to the medial border, which will lead me all the way around the scapula. I can reach above the spine of the scapula and find the supraspinatus muscle, or supraspinous fossa. I can reach underneath it and find the infraspinatus muscle, or infraspinous fossa. It leads me everywhere. It's really actually quite fantastic. So spine and scapula is called the base camp. It's the place where you work from, right? Another thing, I suspect this will be a test question today, but I'm glad it's a test question because it's actually really important. This medial border, this border here, this medial border is an attachment site for a lot of really important muscles. Most importantly, it's attachment sites for muscles that help protract and retract your scapula. Rhomboids major and minor attach back here, and so does something called your levator scapula, and then they're met by another muscle called your serratus anterior. This is very, very important, and we're going to learn about these muscles later, but it's a general bit of knowledge that's really important. It's why we want to be able to find the medial scapula, because when you grab the medial border of the scapula, you're actually grabbing the rhomboids major and minor and the serratus anterior. The rhomboids major and minor and the serratus anterior attach to the scapula. They attach on different sides of the medial border. It's hard to explain, but they actually attach like that. And the serratus anterior actually pulls your scapula forward and the rhomboids pull it back. They actually allow me to do protractions and retractions. Super important. They both grab on. So the rhomboids and the serratus anterior love to grab onto the medial border of the scapula. It's one of the reasons we care about the medial border so much. And one of the reasons I underlined it on the slide. You don't have to do this today in lab, but having your partner lay on their side and trying to find the scapula and the medial border is one of the best ways to do it. You can actually flex their arm and you have them lay on their side. It's called sideline, and you can move their shoulder around better. We actually talked about sideline when the class first started and we were dumping all this information into you. One of the things we said was it's excellent for accessing shoulders and hips. And so I'm just reminding you that. That is one of the reasons we have people lay on their side, because then their shoulder falls backwards and forwards and it's easier to get into the medial border of the scapula. These are just little tips to find stuff. If you were going to find the inferior angle of a scapula, you put your hand on the small of the back, right? Because that's kind of below the inferior angle of the scapula. This is where you'd start. These are kind of the types of questions you're going to get asked today. And I just want you to be able to think about them. Like, okay, yeah, of course I'd put my hand down here and start working up if I was going to find the inferior angle. The superior angle is way up here, and it's really hard to find. And the reason it's really hard to find is there's a big, giant, triangular muscle, diamond-shaped muscle, that runs over the top of it. Anybody else tell me what that muscle is?
Trapezius.
Trapezius, yes. The trapezius, it's the no-neck thing, the trapezius, and it's thick, and it's actually hard to go through it and find the superior angle. In fact, some massage therapists actually go underneath the trapezius. But anyway, it is deep to the trapezius, which means it's deeper than the trapezius. The trapezius is a big slab of meat on top of the superior angle. There's this big trapezius on top. So when you're trying to find it, you're going through all this muscle to try to find this bony thing. And let me tell you, it's hard finding bony things under a big slab of beef. It's deep, deep to that. The lateral border, which is kind of the outside, kind of the axillary region, kind of your armpit here. The lateral border is important attachments for something called the teres major and teres minor that we're going to learn about later. Teres major and teres minor, which are muscles that like to hook to the lateral border. So on the medial border, we've got the rhomboids and the serratus anterior. On the lateral border, we've got the teres major and teres minor. There's another thing that likes to kind of insert up in here, and this is really fascinating. Most people think of their biceps and their triceps as just being arm muscles, but they actually, parts of them actually go over your shoulder. So, let's see. Let's do this. Miss Monreal, do you remember what this cavity or fossa is called in the scapula? This one where the humerus inserts into? What's this fossa or cavity called? It starts with a G.
The glenoid cavity?
Yes, dead on. Thank you. It's the glenoid cavity or fossa right there.
No?
No, it's right. You're right.
Glenoid?
Yeah, glenoid cavity or fossa is correct. You're absolutely right. Can somebody tell me what the tubercle is called above the glenoid cavity? What's the tubercle called right above? It's this tiny little bump right above the glenoid cavity.
Supraglenoid tubercle?
Yes, she just said in Latin the tubercle above the glenoid cavity. I wonder what the tubercle underneath the glenoid cavity would be called.
Subglenoid tubercle.
That's under.
Right?
Close. What's the opposite of super? You are close, by the way. supra.
What, inferior?
Yes, infra.
Infra?
Glenoid tubercle. So we got the supraglenoid tubercle and the infraglenoid tubercle. Well, believe it or not, the long head of the tricep actually inserts. The long head of the tricep actually inserts into the infraglenoid tubercle. It sounds weird, your triceps are on the back of your arm, but they have a head that actually comes over here and attaches into this little tubercle down here called the infraglenoid tubercle. By the way, the supraglenoid tubercle, the long head of, the short head of the biceps attaches here. So part of your biceps and triceps actually cross over your shoulder. In fact, for the biceps, they go up through this interturbicular groove that some people call the bicipital groove, and then go into the supraglenoid cavity. This is going to seem like a lot right now. I'm just trying to give you some overviews because this is more coming attractions. We're trying to explain why all these bumps are kind of important. But the triceps attached to the infraglenoid tubercle, and the biceps attached to the supraglenoid tubercle. Yeah. We already know about this. I've already gone over it. This is the spine of the scapula, supraspinous fossa, infraspinous fossa. If you follow the supraspinous fossa laterally, it will lead you to the acromion process and the clavicle, really. Because that's how it works. If you follow this fossa out, you get to the acromion process and the clavicle out here. What we're trying to do is in 2 dimensions in a book, get you to think in 3 dimensions, which is very, very hard. But it'll all come together. So, we've learned about 3 fossas on the scapula so far. Yeah? Yeah. Mr. Kandaris, can you tell me the 3 fossas on the scapula? I'll give you some clues first, by the way. There's one above the spine of the scapula.
It's something groove, right?
Well, the fossa above the spine of the scapula. So I'm looking for a word that means above, I'm looking for a word that means spine, I'm looking for a word that means scapula.
Superior, something spinning.
Pretty good. Supraspinous fossa.
Okay, supraspinous fossa.
Cool. What's the fossa underneath the spine called?
Would that be inferior?
Or infra?
Spinous. Infraspinous fossa.
Yeah, cool. And then underneath the scapula is another fossa. Underneath, like a train that goes underneath the ground, underneath the scapula.
Would that be posterior?
Not bad. How about underneath? Is it a posterior train that runs under the ground? Is it called?
No, it's an underground train.
Yeah, what do we call an underground train? Something way? Posterior way?
Thoroughway. I don't know.
Maybe a subway?
Subway. Okay.
Hey, what do we call that boat that goes under the water?
Channel.
But the boats, you know, the boats that have little periscope?
Submarine.
Oh, submarine! Wait, subway and submarine both have sub in them.
So.
What do we call the fossa underneath the scapula?
Subscapular fossa.
Yeah, the fossa under the scapula. Perfect. Subscapular fossa. Thank you very much, sir. Awesome. We got 3 fossas here, right? Miss Cooper, is the fossa called above the spine of the scapula?
That would be the supra spinoscapular.
How about supraspinous fossa? That's good. What's the fossa called underneath the spine of the scapula?
It's the sub.
Not underneath the spine.
Under the spine.
Below the spine.
The infra. Spinacular.
Infraspinous
Spinous.
fossa.
I made up a word.
Fossa. So what's the fossa called on top of the spine of the scapula?
It's the supra spinosis.
Spinous fossa?
Supra, yes. I can never get the middle word.
Supra?
Supra.
Spinous?
Spinous is the word.
Fossa.
Fossa.
Cool. What's the fossa underneath?
It's the infra spinous fossa.
Yeah. What's the one under the scapula called? Like a train?
That would be the sub-spinous fossa.
Subscapular fossa, because underneath the scapula. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Miss Stanley, what's the fossa above the spine of the scapula called?
The supraspinous scapula.
Supraspinous fossa?
Fossa, yeah.
What's the fossa underneath the spine of the scapula called?
Infraspinous fossa.
Cool. What's the fossa underneath the scapula called?
The subscapulous fossa.
Good. Subscapular fossa. Awesome. Thank you so much. Miss Hunter, what is the fossa on top of the spine of the scapula called?
Supraspinous fossa.
Cool. What's the one underneath called?
Infraspinous fossa.
Good. And
Spinous fossa.
No, that was great. And what's the one underneath the scapula called?
What's what?
What's the fossa underneath the scapula called?
Underneath the scapula.
Like a.
Oh my gosh.
Like a.
Is it inferior? Oh, sorry, what?
Kind of like those trains that go under the ground, or that boat that goes under the ground.
Oh, the submarine one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the name, or I can't say it. Subscapular fossa.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So don't go anywhere, Miss Hunter, because you're on a roll. I hope you can see the slide right now that says underlined. So the three fossas contain 3 rotator cuff muscles. Can you see that? So the 3 fossas contain 3 rotator cuff muscles: infraspinatus, supraspinatus, and subscapularis.
Yeah, I guess mine didn't refresh again because it's on inferior angle, superior angle again.
All right.
But I always have my camera on you because you do the thing.
Because I do the thing. Yeah.
So.
All right. I'm going to give you a pass.
You do the thing.
I'm going to give you a pass because I need you to be able to see that slide. So don't worry. Miss Petrie. Miss Petrie, can you see the slide that says underlined, so the 3 fossas contain 3 rotator cuff muscles?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Really quickly, before I ask you this question, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. What's the fossa called above the spine of the scapula?
The supraspinatus fossa?
Yes. What's the one underneath called?
The one underneath?
Yeah.
That would be the spinatus?
Yeah. What's underneath the scapula called?
Subscapularis?
Yeah, subscapular fossa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Good. Thank you. That's all I want, Miss Petrie, because Miss Hunter's now got her slide switch. Miss Hunter. So, you correctly labeled the 3 fossas: supraspinous fossa, infraspinous fossa, subscapular fossa. Up there, underlined, it says, so the 3 fossas contain 3 rotator cuff muscles: infraspinatus, supraspinatus, and subscapularis. Those are names of muscles that live in these fossas. What muscle do you suppose lives in the supraspinous fossa? Of those three listed.
What muscle?
Yep, of the three listed.
Supraspinatus.
You are 100% correct, Miss Hunter. You are brilliant. What muscle do you suppose lives in the infraspinous fossa?
The infraspinatus.
Oh my God, 2 for 2. What muscle do you suppose lives in the subscapular fossa?
The subscapularis.
Thank you. So 3 of the 4 rotator cuff muscles live in these fossas. That's important for later. That's why I made such a big deal out of it. I was also trying to make the point, like, again, I'm not trying to talk down to any of you. I'm trying to be silly and make the point that, like, hey, these names are similar and all that kind of stuff. But that was brilliant. Thank you, Miss Hunter. Awesome. By the way, if you're trying to get to the subscapularis muscle, you might wiggle the arm and stuff so you can get your thumb up there further, but we'll teach you about that in lab. Okay, moving right along. The acromion process leads to the clavicle. The clavicle leads to the acromion process. Let me say that one more time. The clavicle leads to the acromion process. The acromion process leads to the clavicle. Right? We know that now, right? And the two together, the acromion process and the clavicle form which joint, Miss Felix Osuna? Which joint is formed by the acromion process and the clavicle?
That will be the acromioclavicular?
Yeah, acromioclavicular joint. Yeah, awesome. Okay, moving right along. Fantastic. You can actually feel the acromioclavicular joint and the sternoclavicular joint opening and closing a little bit. Not opening like a door, but flexing, opening and closing. That's what we mean by that. By elevating and depressing the shoulder. Because when you elevate, you start to make, and depress it, you start to make your collarbone go up and down. So you can actually mess around in people's stuff in there, in these two joints, by elevating and depressing that joint. No need to try it on yourself. Both those joints, sternoclavicular, acromioclavicular. One of my favorites. Yesterday, you might remember that I said there's a part of the scapula you can feel from the front. There's a beak-like projection called the coracoid process. And you can actually feel it up here. It's in an area called your deltopectoral groove. Let me show you on the little guy here. Your deltopectoral groove is kind of the groove between your pec. It's where you'd saw your arm off if you were an axe murderer. You'd saw the arm right here. You'd saw it right across diagonally between my pec and my deltoid. It's where your arm kind of bends if you go in like this. Well, up above it just a little bit, you can feel the coracoid process. Again, it feels like a small eraser. The problem with this is, and the reason we're bringing it up is later we're going to show you how to do stuff in the deltopectoral groove, because here's a very desirable place to massage. But if you're off target and you're up here just a little bit, you'll be hitting the coracoid process. Again, you won't kill anybody, but they will be mad at you because it hurts. I just found mine. It's right below the acromion process. It's a little outside the deltopectoral groove, and it's this tiny little pencil eraser in there. By the way, it's a very important attachment. It's a muscle site. It's a big beak. Stuff's got to attach to it. Two things attached to it. Something called the coracobrachialis, which means the muscle that runs from your arm, your brachii, to the coracoid process, and your biceps brachii. One of the heads of your biceps brachii attached to this too. Very important attachment site for two muscles. Very, very important. And we kind of touched on this, but let's look at this for a second. You're looking at the back of somebody right now, okay? Yeah? And Miss Monreal, What is the fossa above the spine of the scapula?
Supraspinae fossa.
Sure. Supraspinous fossa. Yes. And what's the spine?
I don't know, what was it?
It was close. It was close.
Wait.
I like spinae.
Okay.
Spinous fossa. It's close enough for me. A doctor would have understood you. I'm happy. What's the place underneath the spine of the scapula called? This fossa under here.
Infraspinous fossa.
Yeah, cool. So we already determined that there's 4 rotator cuff muscles. One of them lives above here. It's called the supraspinatus. If it goes across here, by the way, it likes to attach to the greater tubercle of your humerus. You can actually massage this. You can actually rub this area. We also talked about there being an infraspinatus muscle. Believe it or not, it comes under here, and it too likes to grab on to the greater tubercle. Sorry, I just dropped my scapula. By the way, what would happen if the infraspinatus muscle grabbed the head and pulled? What would happen? I'll even take partial answers. If this thing contracts, it's grabbing the head. This would be from front of body. What's happening here? Anybody?
Retracts?
That's the whole scapula. Just think about what's happening in this little joint here. I'm not coordinated enough to do this.
Rotation?
Yes, thank you for rotate. Which way am I rotating?
Lateral?
Yes, dead on right. Did you memorize that for the infraspinatus? No. You didn't even know about the infraspinatus. But once you know where it's located and you look at how it is and you know it's contracting, you can figure out what it does. One of the rotator cuff muscles is the infraspinatus, and it rotates the humerus laterally. It rotates it laterally. Now the infraspinatus always works with another muscle that's down here that I haven't talked about, but it's the 4th rotator cuff muscle called the teres minor. The teres minor also attaches to the greater trochanter. It looks just like the greater tubercle, sorry. It looks just like the infraspinatus, so when it contracts to it, laterally rotates too. So 3 of your 4 rotator cuff muscles attach to this bump. The one on top, the supraspinatus, when it pulls, you do an abduction. The infraspinatus and teres minor and back, when they pull, you do a lateral rotation. But they all grab onto the same spot. They just pull it in different directions. It's kind of cool. Cool. So, the lesser tubercle is the attachment for the subscapularis, the last rotator cuff muscle. It's here. So, again, you're looking at this person head on. If the subscapularis contracts and it's grabbing on the lesser tubercle here, what happens?
It rotates medial? Is that what I'm looking at?
So you're telling me a rotator cuff muscle rotates? Yes, and it rotates medially. Subscapularis rotates medially. Infraspinatus and teres minor rotate laterally, and supraspinatus actually abducts out. Yep. Don't worry, we're going to do those muscles separately. But they're going to ask you questions on your test about, like, why is that bone important and what's that bump doing? Well, the lesser tubercle is really important because the subscapularis attaches to it. And between those 2 tubercles is the intertrabecular groove, which is also called the bicipital groove because the bicep tendon actually runs through it. People can actually pop their bicep tendon out, and somebody has to roll it back in. and it rides right up in here. It rides right up in here and goes into a little tubercle above the glenoid cavity. Just supraglenoid tubercle that we talked about earlier. Comes up this bicipital groove and pops right in up here. This will all make sense as we get to muscles, but we have to start somewhere. Two other things to know. One of the most common things you see in scapulas are what's called winged scapula. Winged scapula means the scapula actually kind of floats out here. You won't see it that often, by the way. Most people have scapulas that are glued to their back. But if the serratus anterior is not doing its job and not holding the scapula down, it'll wing out a little bit. It's a sign there's a problem, there's a weakness in the serratus anterior. It's called winged scapula. They kind of don't lay on the back. They kind of flop open too easily. We just tell you that because it's a very common thing to see and massage therapists need to know. This last little thing is not a thing that a lot of massage therapists know, but they should. Later, when we learn about the trapezius and the deltoid, we're going to find that they share something very amazing in common. The trapezius comes down from your head and inserts into the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, the acromion process, and the spine of the scapula. My trapezius comes down, and actually it is glued into the lateral part of my clavicle, my acromion process, and the spine of my scapula. My trapezius comes down from my head and actually inserts into my clavicle, my acromion process, and the spine of my scapula. I'm about to make sense of this. My trapezius comes down here and inserts in the lateral 1/3 of my clavicle, my acromion process, and the spine of my scapula. My deltoid starts from the lateral 1/3 of my clavicle, my acromion process, and my spine of my scapula. The insertion of the trapezius is the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, the acromion process, the spine of the scapula. The origin of the deltoid, it's the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, the acromion process, and the spine of the scapula. The trapezius attaches to the same exact spots that the deltoid attaches to. Your trapezius and deltoid act as one. The trapezius allows your scapula to elevate and depress, and later we're actually going to find out retract, but elevate and depress. The deltoid allows me to abduct and adduct. The trapezius allows me to even rotate my scapula. So if the trapezius and the deltoid work together, I get to do beautiful movements like this, where, believe it or not, I'm actually elevating and abducting at the same time. Yes. And Miss Harper, thank you. Thank you for moving your arms while I'm talking. Thank you for thinking about how that goes. You're absolutely right. I want you guys you don't have to understand. I want you to kind of feel stuff around. But the trapezius and the deltoid share an insertion, which is the clavicle, the acromion process, the spine, and scapula. And later it's going to make more sense, but it's all part of the shoulder girdle complex. It's a complex, and so all this stuff works together. For now, it's enough to know that they share an attachment site, 3 of them really. Lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, acromion process, and the spine of the scapula. Okay, everybody. That's a lot of stuff.